Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Capacity Overload, a podcast that is focused on looking at how technology and AI can help frontline workers and human services organizations serve their people better. With me is my co-host, Jason Padgett.
Thank you, Oliver. Welcome, everybody. Hey, we have an incredible guest today. Actually, she has been a friend of mine for over a decade now, and was one of the first people to really plug me into the nonprofit space. At that time, she was the community engagement coordinator at the Greater Lafayette United Way, but she's now serving as chief operating officer of Tippecanoe Senior Services. Amy, I could talk for hours about who you are, but why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hello, everyone. Yes, as Jason already said, my name is Amy Wood. I'm from Tippecanoe Senior Services. I have been here a whole about 6 months now. But I'm really excited to come on the show today and talk about our subject.
Awesome. So we usually like to start with your mission, the work that you do, talk about Meals on Wheels, about Tippecanoe Senior Services, everything you're doing there, and then we'll get into kind of some of the pains that you all might have as an organization, and you in particular. I mean, I'd like to talk about kind of the nonprofit space in the Greater Lafayette area because I know your experience goes far beyond just what you have at Tippecanoe Senior Services.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tippecanoe Senior Services is a nonprofit organization where basically we're looking through the 8 dimensions of wellness to help our aging population age in place well. And so that we want to keep them active, healthy, engaged, whatever it is that's going to make them keep them happy so that they can, as they age into their older adult lives. We do that through 4 major programs. The first being what Jason just mentioned was Meals on Wheels. We deliver on an average about 400 meals daily to people in their homes, um, anywhere from someone who might be on um, uh, gets waiver from their insurance or from the federal government that gets their meals paid for to they can also self-pay and get those delivered for whatever reason. Maybe they don't like to cook anymore. Maybe they um, you know want to stick with something that's a little more on their healthy diet. um, we have those delivered by volunteers. We have over 60 volunteers that deliver those daily, Monday through Friday, that do far more than just deliver their meals. They also are doing checkups on them, making sure they're safe in their homes, being that smiling face that they get to see at least once a day so that they feel less isolated. The Meals on Wheels also, we have 3 congregate sites where we deliver meals to places where a large portion of our aging population is living. So Friendship House, Chapel Gate, and then we do one here in our center where we serve free meals to anyone Monday through Friday that can come together and sit and enjoy a meal together. So they get that socialization. Plus, we're making sure they're getting a nutritious, healthy meal for them. So that's Meals on Wheels. There's a smaller program amongst Meals on Wheels called AniMeals, and I'd be amiss to say we have on May 30th a fundraiser called Strut Your Mutt that I want to put a, plug in for, where we're going to walk in West Lafayette, starting at the John Dennis Wellness Center, and we're going to do a 5K. Bring your animal to walk and support us. You can go online to tip tipseniorservices.org to get your tickets. They're just $25. But Humane Society is also with us on that one. That is going to be partnering with us. That if you don't have an animal, you could borrow one for the day and adopt one if you want. So I had to put that plug in there. But that particular fundraiser is for our AniMeals. AniMeals is a program that we found that a lot of times our aging population was finding that hard to stretch dollars. And so we were finding out they were feeding their Meals on Wheels to their pets. And so we said, well, let's put a stop to that. And so we actually deliver pet food, and we are going into a partnership with the local Humane Society where they're going to help us buy food bulk, where we can actually help them make sure their animals are fed and that they get to eat their own meals as well. So we're excited for that. So please come join us on May 30th at 9 a.m. Another me Our other largest program is our senior center. So we actually have a center where Monday through Friday from 9 to 3 every day, you can come. You could do exercising. You can, we have instructor-led classes every single day, from chair yoga to Tai Chi to line dancing to um, hula, weighted hula hoop class, and different things to keep you healthy. You can come and play bingo, you can play cards, you can do puzzles, you can just sit and chat with people. We have guest speakers in constantly that are educating and keeping everybody informed about different subjects that is of interest to our aging population. And then we also have art classes, technology classes. All of that costs $24 a year. So it is a great, even the exercise classes is included in that. So we encourage people to come see us if they're age 55 and over. We'd love for you to come join us at the Senior Center. Then we have our program, SHARP, which is our housing repair program. If you are someone 60 and over, own your own home, and need some repairs to your home that can be costly on a limited budget, we have done roof repairs to replacements to bathroom repairs and replacements, adding, raised toilets, grab bars into bathrooms. We put in new furnaces and air conditioners. We've repaired them. So anything basically to allow them, as they're aging in place, that allows them to stay in their home. That is our Sharp program. And then our final one is a brand new program that many will already know was their own 501(c) is Caregiver Companion. They have just merged with us. We'll have our official open house on May 19th. That will, we have the already employees in place and setting up that program. It has been a volunteer program for many, many years, since 1978, I believe, that has put volunteers in the homes of people that for whatever they need them for. If it's maybe just visiting, maybe it's doing some light housework, anything non-medical, we don't do that. If they need transportation rides, maybe they need to help get into the grocery store once a week. But so we're really excited about bringing that program in and watching it grow from where we are now. So I will shut up now and let you ask questions.
Well, first off, Amy, like you are just so articulate and know you've been there for 6 months. You know every program, which does not surprise me at all. But the first thing that stood out to me is like you guys leave no excuses not to engage because I'm 53, right? I used to love to do yoga, but I got some hip issues. And you're like, well, we have chair yoga and Tai Chi. So now
Yep,
you realize like I have really no excuse to not be doing something because there's a good level of activity for everybody. And then the other one was the Strut Your Mutt. I was thinking, I have two cats and they do not like being walked, but I love the idea that you can actually borrow a dog from the Humane Society for that day. And
absolutely.
we'll make sure we have links to all those in the show notes because those events sound amazing.
Thank you. I'll send you the flyer and you can and share it for us. That would be great.
Most definitely. Oliver, do you have any questions before we kind of dive into some of the other things that I know Amy's been involved with around around Tippecanoe County?
Yeah, I think I'm curious as you think about your service population, seniors. Um, are there any particular challenges that come to mind when working with that, especially when we think about the theme of the show and technology, whether there's anything that comes to mind in that direction?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. I was really excited to be on this podcast today because, um, if you think about it, I look at my own mother is turning 90 this year in August. And to think about where she has been in her life. She started out in a home with an outhouse. And they did have a telephone just because my grandfather worked for the railroad. So they needed to be able to get hold of him. But it was a party line, which a lot of people don't know what that means nowadays. But it was a party line telephone. And to think about, she's the TVs coming into play, microwaves coming into play, phones going from, your landline phones to now you got these handheld things that, and then from there was even those were flip phones, and now we've got, small computers in our hand. Don't even mention the computers that they had to learn. My mom pays her own bills online every month from her computer. So for 90, I think she's doing pretty good. But that is the one thing that when you are of the younger generation, that a lot of those things have been in place from the time you were born, or at least part of it has been in place by and then you've seen increases in technology, like myself. It will, you can understand why it's difficult. Plus, as we are getting older, we all talk about that, how, oh my gosh, I can't grab that name quite as fast. I can't do, these things. Well, the technology is hard, first of all, to grasp for our aging population. But then it just, as soon as you might get something down, it changes, and so it's constantly a struggle. So we try our best here at the center to help our members, with having technology classes, and they come to us and ask us, can you help me with this? And we'll sit down and help them through that, because many people have families that can help them. Some people have families to help them, but maybe they're not around very often or something. So you've got to let people that just don't know how to. So the technology changes is a challenge, and you want something that makes you, you know. So many of our aging population are still so vibrant and their minds are great, but that technology stuff is it's just kicking our butts. So that is definitely something that is, an ongoing. I think eventually we'll work out of that, because as we age and the younger population is growing and becoming our older population, they will have been lived with it. But I still think, because of how fast it changes, it's always going to be a challenge for us as we're getting older.
Can I hop on that first, Oliver, and then we'll let you tell. So I have to make sure I say this the right way, because I would never want to sound like you should just kind of say, "Hey, go figure it out now." But what I have found working with older people and people who struggle with technology, and when I was working in a different organization, there was a woman who was just one of the best workers we've ever had, all kinds of ideas, a real go getter, but she really struggled with technology. And what I taught her was, ask ChatGPT before you ask anybody else how to do what you want to do, because it's amazing how, whether it's Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, how they can walk somebody through how to navigate other
Oh, yeah.
technology, right? So I do think that that's an absolutely amazing. And then for the seniors who are still spunky and still like really wanting to dive into stuff, like the different hobbies that you can explore through these large language models, whether it's music generation, video generation, like, that whole world is open. I read a book one time, and you and I are both Gen Xers. I'm sure that, Oliver's probably a millennial, if not younger than that. He might even be, but, but it talked about how different generations relate to technology, and essentially it said that the
Mhm.
millennials were the first kind of, like, fully, tech to the point where they had iPhones from the time they were little. So, like, they were
Right.
really into it. Gen X, our generation, has a tendency to love it if it helps us, but not really care that much. We don't get overly attached. This is generalization, right? But for boomers, what it said was that they're at either polar end. And I saw that with both my parents. My mother, God rest her soul, logged herself out of everything every time she got out of her phone. She had to call me because she forgot a password or couldn't do this or that. My dad, who's 80 years old, is almost as able to navigate his iPhone as my 15-year-old is.
Yep.
Right. So I do think that there are different ways that AI and the current technology can empower both of those demographics.
It's funny you say that because we actually have a member here at the center that she is got a huge TikTok following.
That's
And,
awesome.
and I love it, because I think she's in her 80s, and here I mean, she TikToks everything, and boy, she has this huge list of followers, which I think is awesome.
That is awesome.
That's really cool.
Oliver, what are your initial thoughts when you hear the tech
Yeah.
struggles and
I mean, I think this is something that um, most folks are to some degree aware of, and oftentimes it is because parents they'll notice their parents or people close to them that are older um, struggling to interact with technology in the same way that they themselves are. And of course, there's always exceptions and exceptions that prove the rule and things of that nature where sometimes older folks are leagues ahead of adopting or using technologies than some younger folks. That happens all the time. But in generalities, I think this is a pretty well understood or well um, experienced thing. It's a common thing that people kind of now they don't realize. I think the depth of the struggle. Um,
Uh-huh.
there's two things that come to mind that I'm really curious about getting your perspective on. One is um, as society as a whole begins to adopt technology and adopt these digital tools in particular as the default mechanism for interacting with it. And I think of government services, which are moving towards digital first. Government services that are removing phone lines. But I also think of a variety of different services and there's a general movement in society of the digital door or entryway more and more becoming, in many cases, the the default entryway.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm curious if you're seeing this shift in society over time. Are you seeing that close the gap with seniors, or are you seeing that increase the gap with seniors? In other words, are they um, kind of being forced to learn technology and have more incentive. And so they're biting the bullet and being like, all right, well, I guess I do want to file my taxes and things of the nature. Or is it on the other end where they're actually being left behind by society more and actually
Yeah.
having deeper struggles and starting to increase the number of wellness problems and gaps that they experience because their ability to access resources is deteriorating from their ability to interact with those systems.
Yeah, that's a great question. 'Cause I think the answer is both.
Mm.
Um, one of the things I think we can all relate to is when we went into COVID. So many people that was the only way we could connect, and so, I know that's when we got my mom, an iPad, and we would get together weekly, every weekly, all of us, all of her children and, some of our her grandkids and things that we taught her how to get her iPad going and video with us, which was so funny sometimes. Sometimes you saw this much of her, but she did it, and like I said, and now she pays her bills and everything. But it does absolutely isolate for a lot. I can tell you, we just had an older gentleman apply, work wanted to apply for work with us and for our Meals on Wheels. And, we'd said one of the things that he had to be able to do was he had to fill out some forms online. He also had, for Meals on Wheels, we asked them to have GPS, which I'm going to tell you I love. That's the best thing that was ever invented was GPS. But he had a flip phone and he did not know how to use a computer. And it was just, it was it was a huge struggle that it just didn't work out for him. And here he is still wanting to work and be, out there, but he's got those constraints against him. Because I told him, I said, "Have you thought about maybe going, to become a Walmart greeter? It's not, or something like that that you can just bring in a little money yet and keep you busy." And he's such a talkative person. I was trying to encourage him. He goes, "Yeah, but don't you have to fill out an online application with that?" And I was like, "Yeah, you do. They don't have paper forms for you to fill out anymore." So I think it's both. I think some have embraced it and maybe even have had more opportunities to embrace it, having family, friends, and that can help them through that, like we did with my mom. But, other people don't have that connections that it has really isolated them. So we've really that's one of the things why we're trying to tackle it here at the senior center is because, we don't want people to feel isolated and feel like they can't connect just because they don't know the technology. So I think you're right on. I think it's both ways, and it's going to be a while before we get past that. And in some cases, I think we'll always have it, because if you think about maybe some of our people that have some mental, you know, illness that have trouble, disabilities that keep them, what is technology doing to them? Are they able to keep up? Maybe, maybe not. There again, I think it depends on how much help they have.
Some of it has to do with not comparing yourself to everybody around you. Like, I just like this lifetime learner idea is we all need to continue to grow and learn. I mean, especially as we get older,
Yes.
that helps us ward off dementia and Alzheimer's and everything else. But everything is a matter of perspective. Oliver and I work for Citizen AI, a vertical AI company. Like everybody that works for our company, besides me, I think, writes code and is a software engineer of some sort or type. So, like, some people might think, oh, yeah, Jason knows a lot about AI. But when I sit down with these guys and they start talking about how stuff works in the back end and stuff, I'm like, totally lost, right? So it's all comparative, and I think that the real thing that everybody has to embrace, whether it's young or old, right now, is just this idea of being a lifetime learner. We all had the experience of going to Wabash Area Lifetime Learning Association. I've been there for the
Yes.
last 3 semesters, and like this is a group of retirees, like 40 of them, that get together for 8 sessions and just learn about artificial intelligence and technology. And you guys are offering those classes. Like, I really encourage people, don't be afraid to get together with like-minded people who are trying to learn and just
Yes.
lean in a little bit. I know it could be scary, but it's a lot less scary when you have other people around you and once you start taking those baby steps.
Absolutely. And don't be embarrassed that you don't know how to do something, because I guarantee you there's 50 other people around you that don't know how to do it either.
Or just don't admit it. Ask ChatGPT and then articulate it like you know what you're talking about.
I have grown to really like the AI because like you said, it's so nice. Also, have you ever sat around with a group of friends or something and you start going, you start saying, "I wonder what, this thing is," or whatever, and everybody goes, "I don't know. What do you think? I don't know." And it was like, if only we had something that we could just ask. Oh, we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think Oliver and I experienced that earlier today. We were trying to figure out some regulations in Indiana, and I was like, "Well, why don't we just ask Perplexity?" For a search engine, I honestly think Perplexity is probably the best large language model out there. So if people just want to ask a question, like replace Google search with something that's going to give you a very pointed, detailed answer that you can click on links to verify,
Yep.
Perplexity.ai is an amazing tool.
It is great for that. Yes.
Absolutely. Now, I wanna ask you all a question. Do we need to be in danger, though, of, since there's so much fake out there, that, when we are asking our questions, that how should you go about making sure you're getting valid, answers, and not getting some, crazy answer that gonna lead you down a rabbit hole that you don't need to be. What do you do about that?
I'll
Yeah.
let Oliver go first.
I think once upon a time, we were able to get information from the news. We were able to get information from trusted sources, and they weren't always right, but the probability that the information was right or at least useful in the moment was pretty high. What's happened with the internet, what's happened with a lot of these different technology revolutions is we've now given so many people a voice, which is a good thing overall, that the ability to trust any single source is really an individual question and is definitely a not very likely answer, meaning there's a little bit of doubt that should be part of everything you read on the internet.
Yeah.
Um, with AI, what AI does is effectively read the internet and then, based on what the internet says, tell you the answer. And so, because the internet inherently has this doubt aspect to it, this lack of ability to fundamentally trust everything, um, you also should take everything from AI with a grain of salt. Now, there are techniques you can employ that make it a little bit more reliable, and they're a little bit more involved than just saying, "Don't lie to me" to the AI. That does not work super well. Um, one technique you can do for if you're doing something a little bit more involved, trying to really dig into a research question or something like that, is you can ask the AI to write a prompt for you, a research prompt for you, and then you can ask multiple AI with that same prompt, and then you can ask an AI to take all of those reports and do a cross validation kind of unified report. And this is recreating the balanced opinion or the
Oh,
multiple kind of opinion concept, with the core thesis being that if multiple different AI models are agreeing on this, then most likely the internet is kind of agreeing on it. And
mhm.
still take it with a grain of salt, but it's more likely to be true, less likely to be just made up, like hallucinated, like I just decided to just
Oh,
tell you a story. Less likely for that to happen because it would be very unlikely that all of them would have that that
same wrong
very
material.
wrong thing. And it can give you a unified report. Now, that's a little bit more involved. It's a bit of a pain. Um,
Yeah.
Tools like Perplexity, to Jason's point, are for the most part um, will bring you to good resources. So
Uh-huh.
this is the good practices of Wikipedia or any of the different internet tools. Of Perplexity will give you this like paragraph that kind of explains things, which is the least likely part to be accurate.
Okay.
Um, so one thing you can do is then when it makes a statement, it cites a source, read the source. Um,
Okay.
though it has gotten better over time of, to the point where for routine things where my life doesn't depend on the answer, I kind of at this point go, all right, that seems good enough for me for now. I just always remember to keep it all with a grain of salt. And if anything's really important, to just double or triple check it.
That's great. That is
I
great.
would I would go even a little deeper. I would say that, and so there are hundreds of millions of dollars a year being taken from businesses and people from deep fakes of either voice or video. So one of the things that I highly recommend is that any family get together and get a password that you all have that you come up with when you have no devices, not Siri, not your Google Home, not your iPhone, like no devices around. Get together in a quiet space and come up with a password so that if your daughter calls and says, "Mom, I'm in jail. I need $10,000," you can say, "What's
Right?
the password?" Right? And if they don't know, then it's probably a deep fake. So a password is very important. I think to Oliver's point, we used to say trust but verify. Now it's just verify. Like
Okay.
also anything that you see could be. And I mean, hasn't been that different with the news bifurcations. Between Fox and CNN, you get two totally different, totally different perspectives on what happened in any event and have for a decade. So now that's just amplified by AI. So you need to verify. if you pay for if you it is the best $20 a month you'll ever spend. Have a paid AI if you're going to use this much, because
Okay.
it's much more likely to give you better answers, more thought out answers, and less hallucinated answers if you have a paid AI account. And then the final thing I'll say that is AI is very sycophantic, and it tells you what it thinks you want to hear. So one of the best muscles you can build is once you go through and ask AI something like, "Hey, do you think I should start take up bike riding with my bad hip?" And it's like, "Oh, that's a great idea. 25 miles a day." Say, "Now give me the opposing viewpoint." Always ask for an opposing viewpoint, and that
Okay.
gives you some really good perspectives on what what really you're dealing with, and allow you as a human to have that discernment and make a more informed judgment.
I like that. It's like the Sleeping Beauty when the evil witch says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?"
Yes, it is that
Of
mirror.
course, I wanted to say I am.
Yes, that's a great analogy. I may use that alliteration, in the future. That is a great analogy.
And and just like a mirror, it tries to reflect to you the version of the world that it thinks you like
You
best.
would. Yeah.
It's not just the compliments, not just the like positive feelings. It's also trying to keep you engaged and trying to keep you in front of that mirror. And so uh, within that analogy, the mirror on the wall is supposed to be able to see into other places and see what's going on. Well,
Mhm.
with the AI version of that, many of them will just start showing you visions that could be happening but aren't. Things
Yeah.
where you'll be able to notice, oh, there is a place that it's showing me, but that's not what's actually happening there,
Yeah.
because it's constructing a version of things that it believes will keep you engaged. And so that analogy holds in many ways. Very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The
I
flip side,
love also
right?
that, I love the password idea. That's happened to my mother. I know I keep going back to my own mother, but, she actually, someone called her up, and she has a grandson named Michael, and he said, "Grandma, it's Michael." And she's like, "Oh, well, hi, Michael," and because and he was like, "I need money, blah, blah, blah," and all this stuff, and she talked for quite a while. She did end up figuring it out and didn't get pulled in, but so many people do. They get sucked in. Another thing that I think about myself is, I see, I'm playing more games on my phone than, so, even if they're word games, that they recommend for, aging a population just to keep their mind going and stuff. But during all those games is all those ads too that pop in, and how many of them are scams, and that I've gone to the point where I've seen something, I've now am going t I go to my computer then and look that product up to make sure and ask it, "Is this a scam?" And it'll tell me, "Yes, this is," many people are saying that the quality isn't good, it's coming from wherever, but how many people just go for it and just sign, and just go, "Oh, that looks cool," and order it, and next thing they know, they're pulled into some scam that they're being billed monthly, tons of dollars that they can't get stopped.
Amy, that is one of the best use cases. I always forget about it, but I screenshot those now. I will just take a screenshot and give it to Perplexity and say, "What do you think?" And it'll be like, "Well, here's all the red flags as to why that's probably a scam." Like you get these things from the Department of Transportation that say that
Yeah,
oh some toll or something. I'll just screenshot it and give it to Perplexity and be like, "Hey, Department of Transportation never communicates the way that you got that message, so that's a scam." And that's a great use case for anybody of any age, but particularly for the elderly
Yeah.
population.
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
do you have to pay for I can't say it. Perplexity?
No,
Perplex
it is free, and there are
Okay.
paid versions of it if you wanna do some deeper stuff than we're probably gonna dive into, in this conversation, but if I was gonna pay I personally, and Oliver can give his opinion, if I was gonna pay $20 a month, I would get Anthropic's Claude. I think it's probably the best bang for your buck right now. It's less apt to tell you what you wanna hear. If they've been
Yeah.
trying to leverage business sales. So you can't tell businesses like every idea they have is a great idea because they'll go out of business and then they won't subscribe to you anymore. So it's a little less tell you what you want to hear than ChatGPT. But I will say for the elderly population, ChatGPT may be the very best because if they can't read very well, the voice interface, turning it on and talking back and forth, there is no model that's better at
Oh,
voice than ChatGPT is.
nice. That's good to know.
And it speaks
Interesting.
70 languages. So whether it's
Oh,
Haitian, Spanish, French, you name it, I haven't run into one that doesn't speak yet.
oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. So
I
let's
learn something every time I talk to you guys.
can I ask you a question that was brought up at Wall? This kind of has to do with citizen AI, but it's the AI space, right? And the service provider space. Someone brought up duplication of services and the thought that amongst social workers, case managers, that empowering them with technology would would cost them jobs. Can you just speak to the fact after working for the United Way or whatever that there are certain jobs that we have such a shortage of that technology is in no danger of overtaking?
That's a great question. So yes, my many years in nonprofit, and just to give some context, I was about I worked 14 years for United Way, and then I was at Laura Educational Opportunities before here at Tippecanoe Senior Services. And that is always when it comes time for donors, that's one of the questions they always ask. Well, what about duplication of services? Should we be worried about that? Do we need to make sure that we don't have agencies that are doing things that other agencies are taking care of. And the answer to that is when the problem is solved and we no longer have it, then we have duplication of services. But until then, there are so many people, whatever it is within the nonprofit world, that are struggling and need the help that we just don't have enough to be able to even still get around. You think about daycare right now is a really huge topic. We do not have enough childcare workers. So would it be duplication of services to have several agencies that were training childcare workers so that we can get that it field, you know, flooded with people to be able to take care of the children at reasonable costs and everything that we need. Mental health. I mean, it- you can touch on every single agency could touch on mental health and still be needing that service. So when I hear duplication of services, that always makes me sort of cringe because I want to live in a world where we have to worry about duplication of services, where we've solved it and we don't have to. And now that there's one organization out there that takes care of any of the stragglers we have still out there with that problem, um, and not and have to worry about having duplication. But until that time, we need as many people. We are running out of workers in social services. They don't get paid enough. There's so many different reasons of why we are in the need for more services and not to worry about duplicating them.
Couldn't agree more. Oliver, you have thoughts off that?
I I think that covers it fully. Uh,
Well, I'm gonna pull in your all's, so with having the app to be able to do it, so I can tell you for us that we're one of the reasons, we may eventually end up going with your service is the fact that we can't afford to hire someone that will do nothing but help people, our aging population get to all the services they need. So if we have something that we can go to, like your service, that is now going to we can type that up and say, I need something for this person that is going to do XYZ. It can spit out now here locally, knowing where I'm in, where I'm located, and say, here are several different organizations now that you can go to that, and now I can help get that our members to that next service. That and then that's it's just going to basically, it doesn't take away the need, because the need is still personally, you have to have that personal touch, but it just makes it so much easier for us to help each other getting people to the services they need, that we can't provide. We're not a mental health organization. So I'm not, you're not going to be coming to, if we have somebody comes into us, which we do have, we have people with mental health issues with our Meals on Wheels. And so us being able to see maybe a problem that's happening that we can address, but to know that I can pull something up and go, "Hey, we can send this person over here and make the call for them and or give them the ride there or whatever it is to help them navigate to that service," is just going to be a tremendous help. So it's not taking away. You know, I'm one to say, I used to say, are we gonna lose, you know, is AI gonna take over and we're gonna lose people, you just still can't get away from that human touch that you still have to have. So I just don't think AI can take away as much as people are worried about.
Let me say something
My
to that
opinion.
shortage, and then we'll let Oliver speak to tech enablement of social workers, right? So I do think there's not people harvesting ice anymore. There's not people driving horse and buggies unless you're in an Amish area. There's not people lighting lamps. Like as society changes, the job landscape changes, right?
Yeah.
So there may be a lot of jobs that are sitting in front of a computer, white collar jobs, accounting, things like that are completely displaced by artificial intelligence in the next 5 years. But
Yep.
there are so many human to human healthcare jobs and social services needs out there that people may just have to make that pivot, right? And you
Yeah.
can always take the skill set. If you're amazing at finance, cool. Go work for a healthcare company or nonprofit in the social services space as a treasurer or someone a chief financial officer, right?
Yeah.
Put your needs work because robotics is way behind what happens inside of our computers. You're not going to
Yes.
have like robotic babysitters and healthcare workers that are mass deployed for a very long time. There's still a lot of
Yeah.
needs in healthcare, and technology can empower those people who are already overstretched in healthcare. And Oliver could speak better to
Uh-huh.
that than I can.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, I actually, Jason, just was fortunate enough to be invited to speak at the Michigan Works AI Works Summit earlier this week on the topic of AI and how it's changing jobs and all these different things. I think one of the big takeaways is that this current wave of technology and AI will have a huge impact on knowledge work. Um, but when you think about most jobs are a bundle of knowledge work, physical work, and relational work. Stuff that's about working with ideas, stuff that's about working with the real world and the physical world, and stuff that's about working with people and really being able to leverage empathy to understand what's going on with them and be there for them. And so most jobs have some composition or some amount of these three aspects. The jobs that are going to get heavily impacted by this latest wave of AI technology is going to be the jobs that are mostly thinking about ideas or working with ideas, working with concepts or writing or language, things that are mostly knowledge oriented, the knowledge work side of things.
Yeah.
When you think of social work and social workers are 30% knowledge work and 70% relational heart and soul.
Yep.
It's about the most valuable thing that a social worker does is be able to be there and hold space for the other person and then be able to support them as they move forward um, with improving their life or sustaining their life, going out of crisis to stability or going out of stability into generally just a better life. And
Mhm.
so that relational component of the work, I mean, we are so far away from being at a point where that can be done by technology. Now, if you then think about that same social work, the knowing which program works best for that individual is not like the important part of social work. It's
Right.
historically necessary part for people to be able to provide that value and provide that economic function. So I think a lot of jobs are going to more and more start offloading the knowledge work components to different AI systems, and the physical work. Your plumbers, electricians, they're fine. They're going to be making a lot more money over time.
Right.
Um, and the relational work, which is about really working with the person and using the very natural, if like, empathy oriented capabilities that people have, those jobs are gonna those components of jobs and those jobs are gonna be here for a long time because we're
Yeah,
far from technology being able to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, Oliver, because I don't want to be misconstrued when I say robotics is behind manufacturing type robotics, individual use cases of robotics. I think all of that is moving very fast. But when you're talking about healthcare, like we're not going to have robots that look like us going into houses taking care of people on the regular. Like that's to me, that's probably a ways down. And even if we did, who would want it, right? Like I,
Right.
a friend of mine, Julie, who we all know, Julie Core, she says, well, yeah, like maybe to bathe you or do some of that stuff that you don't want, that is kind of embarrassing when you're being taken care of. Yeah, I could see robotics entering that at some point in time. But when people talk about the elderly having robots to keep them company, I'm like, that's kind of a pipe dream. Like you'll have a whole generation of people who are raised by having a robot in their house before they have any kind of comfort level to want as a majority. There's always going to be the minority that's like, yeah, that's cool as hell. I want Rosie the robot in my house, but I think the majority of people they still want to deal with other human beings. And what I would like to see a conversation. Sometimes I think the conversations that we have as a society aren't really right. So electricians and plumbers, Oliver brought up, right? They're starting to make a lot more money. There aren't enough of them. That plays into the data centers and things like that that need to be built, right? But as we have not enough of them and more need, they are making more money. Why are case managers, social workers, why are they still not making more money? Even though I think in Indiana, we have like one social worker to every 4 or 500, if not more than that, people who need.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the big question. You're going off on a really, scary slope of a conversation there. I don't think we have enough time to go into.
I would imagine we're all probably very opinionated and of somewhat the same opinion that those people should be better compensated. And I hope, I will say I read a book by one of the physicians that helped train the original ChatGPT models before it was released. And one of the things he brought up that I think societally in both nonprofit and healthcare space we need to pay attention to, which is if a general practitioner or someone if it takes them normally 7 to 8 minutes that they get to engage with a patient and most of that's note taking or half of that's note taking. Again, if AI can take those notes for them,
Yeah,
then the organizations that hire them allow them 8 minutes of human to human contact, or does that organization say, "Oh, good, now you can see two people every 8 minutes"? That's the
yeah.
kind of thing I think we have to be very cognizant of as we offload some of that knowledge work and some of that paperwork.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I see that could be really huge because that's one of the things they have to see so many patients a day that, to think about all the notes that they do have to take and how they went into the business to help people too. I mean, that's what their heart, when if they didn't become doctors because they wanted to take notes, and make diagnoses, that's not why they became because they want to help people. And so yeah, if we can use the technology to be able to help us, you know, keeping track of it, and also, keeping track of if you're taking notes that are mixing with the last time you saw your doctor, because how often do you see your doctor too? He doesn't remember what you talked about the last time. He takes, a few seconds before he comes in to see you and kind of goes through your file real quick, but that's not, enough. Where if you're taking notes, maybe that, matching that with the others ago, it could spit something out to the doctor and say, "Hey, the last time they were said they had this issue, this time they're saying this issue. If those are related, this could be causing this." I mean, that could be really huge.
in a lot of fields
Yeah.
with case managers, with
Yeah.
doctors, being able to fill. I want to ask one more thing. I want to get your opinion on because I don't know how much development work you've done, but I know you've done some marketing and development work in your years over there. I look at this technology for in the nonprofit space as a lot of nonprofits. We're not talking about a giant nonprofit like Salvation Army or Goodwill, right? But a lot of local nonprofits, the development director has to do a lot of stuff, right? And so people fear this whole idea of like, oh, well, we don't want it to write for us because then it's not genuine. If you can really and you can train these models to carry your organization's tone, voice, and style and it can generate some of the marketing for you, don't you think it's more valuable to have time to sit down across from a potential big donor and have a conversation than sit in your office all day writing tweets and
Yeah.
Facebook posts?
Absolutely. I mean, I do. I use it all the time for that. I mean, I write something up. I'll write an email up or something, and then I'll just put it in and say, "Hey, professionalize this a bit, but keep my warmth about." And they'll go, and they'll spit out a couple of different ideas, and sometimes they're right on, and I go, "Yeah, that's great." Other times I go, "Yeah, no, I'm meaning a little more like this," and then they rewrite it, and but it saves me. I had to do 2 evaluations for interns we had, finishing up this week from Purdue, and, to sit down and take the time to write out those, which is very valuable because this is a learning experience for them, and being an intern, being here, so they really want the feedback. But it just helped me cut the time down so fast to being able to get that, to say what I wanted to say, but done in a professional way. Um, I think I shared when we were, with the Walla group, our Strut Your Mutt fundraiser. That particular flyer that I said I'll send to you is an AI generated. We just sort of put in all the information, set, and it just popped out. Didn't do it the first time exactly what we wanted, and so we were like, okay, change this and change that, and before you knew it, we got in no time flat, we had this wonderful flyer that's fun, engaging, and but informational that if I'd tried to do that, that would have taken me forever because I'm not a design person. So, yeah, it's definitely, and when you say within the nonprofit world, I can tell you, we wear so many different hats. So we are, the social media, we are the marketing, we are the the fundraiser, and also figuring out how we get donors, where the writing newsletters, where do they think? Do you think we all have that talent under our belt? No. So anything that we can have to have it help us, um, is just a plus, because there's just not enough money in nonprofits to be able to have, you have great commercials of those great big corporations out there. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of money to hire the best to create those really awesome commercials and everything. We just don't have that. So the AI has actually opened that world up to us to make that easier. Now I will say you still need someone that has it still has to be human, driven, because you just, like I said, you have to still know somewhat of who you're going to be marketing to be able to guide that AI piece. So it's not like something that can just take over, but definitely helps us in with our world, of finance shrinking on us. It's harder and harder to get those grants out there, and um, so anything we can do to help us, along the way of writing the best grant we can so we can get the funding is just going to be a plus for any of us.
So well said. We're coming up on an hour. Oliver, what other questions do you have, man? What a great conversation.
I mean,
It is.
it's been fantastic to chat through all these different things. I think it might be a bit of a can of worms, but one thing when I think about um, when I think about this question or this issue of seniors and interacting with technology, there's two reasons or mechanisms that might be getting in their way that come to mind, and potentially more. And so I would love to really get your perspective and your thoughts on it. One is one possibility is the uh, conceptual side, meaning there's all of these concepts and ideas, interrelated concepts and ideas about how technology works overall and how the different pieces come together. Um, it's as complicated as the US legal system, if not more complicated. But there's a lot of this like conceptual aspect to it. And that's part of like thinking like, oh, maybe I should turn off my computer and turn it back on. Like that's part of that.
Yes.
There's another aspect, which is the interaction method, the interface method, right? So I think back to the example you shared with with your mother, you know, grew up with a phone. Well, for a really long time, like the phone was the interaction method of interacting with a whole bunch of different things. Um, from the phone, we kind of went to screens um, in the last 20, 30 years, um, or 40, whatever. Um, and I guess part of the thing that I'm curious about is do you think what's the, the greater factor for that gap for seniors with interacting with technology? Do you think it's the conceptual, or do you think it's more the practice and almost like not exactly muscle memory, but the tacit knowledge and comfort with the interaction methods of this new wave of technology, which will then be supplanted by another one and so forth. And I'm just curious if which one you think is, if you think there is one over the other, or maybe there's another one that I'm not thinking of, but which one do you think is kind of like the leading the largest cause of the hurdle?
Well, I would say I personally, I mean, there again, it's both. Um, but I would definitely say it's easy for us to get set in our ways. And
Mm,
when you do something over and over the same way, you get comfortable with it.
mhm,
And nobody, I don't care if someone tells you they love change, they're lying. I mean, they like maybe excitement and, and like to expand the knowledge and everything. But when it comes down to it, how you do something every day, we pretty much like it to stay the same. And the older we get, the more so that gets, I think. And then you add on the diminishing, like I said, you can't grasp words, you can't hear as well, you can't see as well. You add all of those components to it, then it even makes it that much harder because it's more important to stay with that continuity that we know then then even though we want to learn and we still want to learn everything, it makes our lives easier if we can just stay with something we know. And so I think that component adds a lot into it. And I don't know if you would ever get rid of that because
mhm,
because as we can see from how it's changed over, the last, 60 years that my mother has seen change. Um, it is amazing to think about how we've evolved and to think that what's 60 years from now, what's it gonna be like? It's gonna be changing again. So it's always gonna be that thing. So I think until um, I'm gonna take it back to why our services are so important of making sure you're keeping yourself as viable as you can, keep your health and your spirituality and your thinking, everything, keep that going to be ready for that change that's inevitably gonna happen. The better off we're going to be.
yeah,
But we're always going to have some aspect of it we're going to automatically hold on to. It's just easier the way I always did it. I say that with cable's a good example. did we all like cable? No, because it got too expensive, and we were just like, "This is ridiculous." You got all these cable channels, you don't even watch them all, so, it's crazy. So then they went, "Okay, let's do some streaming things, and we'll just narrow it down. This is now you only have this. If you only like to watch these things, you can just watch these things on this." Well, now we have how many different streaming options, and now I can't find anything because I go on and I have to look it up to see where to find the show I wanted to watch, and I can't even remember what shows I did want to watch. So, did we make it better? I don't know. Maybe somewhat in some ways, yes, but no, I just want to go back to cable.
Hey, that's a great use case for AI. Keep a list of what you love that you've watched and give it to AI and say, "These are
Yeah,
the I've loved. What's streaming on these channels that I have that I should go check out?" Because you're not wrong. It's a crazy world to navigate now. I can't keep up with Amazon, Apple. Like, there's just so many
no. I
choices.
can't remember when I watched that show. It was like, "Oh, I really liked that show. Where did I watch it at?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, that was on Apple TV, and that was on
One nice
Amazon Prime."
One last thought I have on what Oliver just asked, because why I fell in love with large language models when they first came out is because I have I'm kind of polar in the sense of fairly strong in language, philosophy, psychology, the humanities, and very weak in math, and I've let that deficit kind of run me for a long time. Artificial intelligence tools, large language models are really good at explaining something to you that if you're embarrassed to ask anybody else at
Yes.
whatever level you want. Now, I would not say, a lot of people say, explain it to me like I'm five. If you do that, it will tell you stories about Thomas the Train and like weird analogies. But if you say, explain it to me like I have an eighth grade education or
Yeah,
a reading level, or like like if let's just say it's robotics, explain it to me like I've been a fast food worker my entire life and have no understanding of robotics. It will
yeah.
break it down and be infinitely patient with you uh, in explaining things. I think it's a great tool for that.
That's a great example. I mean, I can tell you tech people sometimes are my least favorite people to talk to because I'm like, "Yeah, you just talked in a different language there. I have no idea what you just said." And I have a friend that is so good. He is so good at breaking it down to my thought, how I can understand it. And I always tell him that. I always go, "Thank you." I go, "You make that sound, I actually understand what you're saying there." I go, "So many times when the tech person comes to me and goes, and starts talking about it, I just check out because I'm like, I have no idea what you're speaking right now." So yes, I love that concept of maybe getting them to talk to my level. Well, like I said, when I have it changed to my tone, you know what kind of a personality I have in how I write my emails. I like exclamation marks. I like smiley faces and stuff. So the AI picks that up, and so when so they know how to spit it out that still has my personality, but yet makes it maybe a little, less, a little more professional that I want it to look like, and say, okay, maybe I don't need an exclamation mark after every sentence, you know.
That's awesome. All right, Amy, we're gonna put all the links, but tell us again about the mutt strut as my cat jumps on my lap.
Yep,
Uh,
May 30th, 9 a.m. We're starting off at the John Dennis Wellness Center, going to be running or walking a 5K around that Cumberland area. Bring your pet. If you don't have one, Humane Society will be there. You can take one to walk, or you can adopt one. But just come join us. Go to our website, tipseniorservices.org, and right on the front page, you can click on there and get your ticket to join us. And anybody under 18 is coming with an adult. You don't have to buy a ticket for them. It's $25 to be hopefully a great morning just to support our AniMeals program, and we'd love to have you come out and learn more about our services as well, and have a good time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great.